All right, so have you heard about this new in-death book, Bonded in Death?
Oh, yeah?
You know how it is, right? Like, so many books, so little time,
Right.
trying to decide what to read next. And
Exactly.
maybe you're a Giovanni Robb fan. You're like, is this one going to be good? Is it worth my time? Well, that's what we're going to do in this deep dive, is to give you the info you need to make that decision.
And I gotta say, I think it's really strong entry in this series, especially.
Especially for a longtime fan.
Yeah, for those longtime fans.
But is it really more than just the same old, same old?
I think it actually does bring something new to the table because it's all about Somerset.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I mean, he's always kind of in the background.
exactly. He's always there, but he's Rourke's very proper major domo, right?
Right.
But this book really delves into his past, and you get to see a whole other side of Somerset.
I am intrigued.
Right.
That is not what I was expecting.
Yeah, so Somerset was part of this group called the 12, and it was during the Urban Wars back in the 2020s.
Okay.
And you can think of them kind of like a spy thriller team.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, really highly skilled individuals, all with their own kind of unique talents operating in the shadows.
Okay, so Somerset's a secret agent now. I mean, this is not the Somerset I know.
Yeah, so how does this all tie back into the murder that Eve's investigating? Well, Giovanni Rossi, who is the victim, he was also part of the 12.
Uh-huh.
And his death is just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, no.
Yeah, as Eve investigates deeper, she uncovers a conspiracy that threatens not only Somerset, but the other remaining members of the 12.
Oh, my goodness. So it's like a double whammy, right? Because not only are they trying to solve the crime, but now they're trying to protect Somerset and the rest of his team.
Exactly. So it's not just about finding the killer, but it's also about uncovering these secrets from his past.
Oh, this is so interesting. I'm already hooked.
Right.
But tell me about, like, the writing. Is it the same Robb style that we know and love?
Absolutely. You're still going to get those, really snappy dialogue and the banter that she's known for. And of course, the chemistry between Eve and Rourke is still there. But I think there's a noticeable maturity in the prose this time around.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And especially, in the way that she handles Somerset's backstory and his emotional baggage and his personality. It's done with a level of nuance that I think really adds another layer to the series.
So it's like familiar but new at the same time.
Exactly. It's like taking everything you love about In Death and then I kind of like elevating it to a different level this time.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, I mean, how would you compare Somerset's past to some of the other characters that we've seen?
Yeah, that's a good question because we get other backstories right in the series.
Exactly, we do.
How does Somerset's compare?
It's definitely one of the most compelling, if you think about Rourke's past, that was revealed kind of gradually over several books. But with Somerset, it's like ripping off a Band-Aid. We're just thrown right into this world of espionage and intrigue.
And he's been such a mystery all this time.
Exactly. And I think because he has been this kind of enigma, this silent observer in the background, it makes it even more impactful when we see this other side of him.
Yeah, and I think because we know so much about Rourke already, we've gotten all of his backstory over the years that makes this even more like, oh, wow, we really didn't know anything about Somerset.
Exactly. And I think it adds a new dimension to their relationship, too, because now we're seeing the foundations of their loyalty and their friendship. Those shared experiences that really bind them together. It's like we're uncovering this whole other chapter in their story.
Oh, that's so cool. I'm thinking in my mind Somerset, like doing all these cool action scenes. Is that what it's like?
You can totally picture it, like almost like a soundtrack is playing as he's, navigating this shadowy world.
Right.
There's definitely this sense of urgency and danger that Robb creates that really just keeps you on the edge of your seat.
Okay, so are you saying if I like the Bourne series or Alias, I'll like this book?
Absolutely. I think you'd see a lot of similarities in terms of the intricate plots and the double crosses and the violence.
Okay, so we've got action and intrigue, Somerset's backstory. Is there anything else unique about this book compared to the other books? It's a series.
One thing that really struck me was how Robb handles these themes of like social unrest and political instability. And even though the urban wars are, it's a past event, it feels really relevant to like what we're experiencing.
Oh, so it's not just total escapism. There's a little bit of like real world.
Right. It makes you think about, the consequences of choices and the cycles of violence and how fragile peace can really be.
Okay, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up because I feel like we need to see more of that in books these days.
Definitely.
Okay, so I think I'm getting a pretty good picture of what this book is about, but before we get too deep into it, let's step back for a second and think about what we've talked about so far.
So we've covered a lot about Bonded in Death so far.
We have.
The Urban Wars.
Somerset's backstory.
But is it a must-read or is it just kind of like a good entry?
Right. For those of us who've been with the series since the beginning, you know what makes it stand out. Why should I pick this up next?
Well, I mean, for longtime fans, the big draw is going to be Somerset.
Okay.
I mean, we've been waiting books for this.
Yeah, it's true.
And Robb really doesn't disappoint.
But is it satisfying? Because sometimes I feel like authors will dangle that carrot, and be like, oh, we're going to get the backstory.
Yeah.
And then you get to it, and it's like 2 paragraphs.
Right. No, this is not a crumb situation.
Yeah.
It's like a full meal deal.
Okay, go.
You get to see young Somerset. We see his, the skills that he had and the choices that he made. It's like reading a whole separate origin story that's woven into the main plot.
Okay, that does sound really cool, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
But what about new readers?
Yeah.
If somebody hasn't read every single in-depth book, is this one that they could jump into?
I mean, it's always ideal to start from the beginning with any series, right?
Sure.
So you get that full character arc.
Yeah.
But Robb is really good at providing enough context
Okay.
so that even if you're a new reader, you can follow along and you don't feel completely lost.
So you're not going to be totally confused.
No.
But if you have been reading the series all along, you're going to be like, oh, I remember that.
Exactly.
You get those little Easter eggs.
Yes, definitely. And, for fans who maybe like the romance aspect of it a little bit more, you might find this one a little bit light in that department.
Oh, really?
Rourke takes a bit of a backseat,
Oh, okay.
which makes sense
Yeah.
given,
The focus on Somerset.
Yeah, but the romantic elements are still there. Eve and Rourke are still very much in love and their relationship is strong. It's just not the central focus of this particular book.
Okay, I did see some reviewers mention that. So Rourke fans, take note. This is not necessarily the book for you if you're looking for, like, tons of romance.
Exactly, yeah. This is not a romance novel disguised as a thriller.
Right, right.
But speaking of thriller, what about the pacing? Is it a slow burn or is it more of a page turner?
I like a good page turner.
Oh, this is definitely a page turner.
Okay, good.
Robb keeps the action coming, and the mystery itself is very layered. You're constantly trying to piece together the clues right alongside Eve, and you're wondering, like, who else from the 12 might be in danger?
Oh.
And I would say if you liked Memory and Death, where Eve's past was kind of the main focus,
Yeah.
it has a similar pacing.
Okay, cool. I like that one.
Yeah, lots of momentum.
What about for somebody who maybe tried an in-depth book like a long time ago
Yeah.
and wasn't hooked? What about Bonded might change their mind?
Yeah, I think this is a good one to jump back in on because it does feel like Robb is really, firing on all cylinders with this one. The plot is really tight. The stakes are very high.
Okay.
And the emotional core of the story really resonates strongly. So if you felt like maybe some of the previous books were getting a little formulaic,
Yeah.
I think this is one where she kind of breaks the mold a little bit without losing what people love about the series.
So it's a good jumping back in point
I think so.
for lapped fans.
Absolutely. Yeah, and just the freshness of Somerset's story. It really injects a new energy into kind of that familiar formula.
Okay, sold. I'm convinced.
Yeah.
But let's be realistic. No book is perfect for every single person who should skip Bonded in Death.
Yeah, I would say if you really need a lot of romance in your mysteries, this might not be the best fit.
Okay.
And also, if you really dislike futuristic settings, even lightly done ones, Robb's world might not be for you.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the plot, the characters, the writing. We've compared it to other books in this series. Is there anything else that really stood out to you as a reader?
What I was really struck by was how Robb handles the emotional beats in this book.
Oh, okay.
Somerset, despite his usual stoicism, he's really forced to confront some painful memories.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and seeing Eve kind of navigate that vulnerability and offer him support in her own way is, I don't know, it's really well done. And it
Yeah.
adds a richness to their dynamic that I really hadn't anticipated.
It's like one of the things I love about this series is that the relationships are always so real.
Yes.
Even though they're in this futuristic world.
Exactly. And I think in this book that realism is even more apparent, especially between Eve and Somerset.
I like that.
So based on everything we've talked about, would I recommend Bonded in Death?
Okay, so give it to me straight. Is this a must-read or what?
It's a yes for
For-
me, especially if you like those fast-paced thrillers. But, you want that little touch of romance. And of course, we love that futuristic flair that Robb always gives us. And it's got a lot of character development in it, too.
Yeah, especially for Somerset.
Yes, this is the book that fans have been waiting for, We've got all the things that we love about the series, but it's got that fresh perspective that really adds a lot of depth and a lot of intrigue to it.
All right, so let's say somebody's listening right now and they're still on the fence about reading this.
Okay.
What would you say to them to convince them?
I think if you're really looking for a book that's heavy on the romance, you want romance to be the dominant storyline, this might not be the one for you.
Okay.
And like I said before, if you just really hate futuristic settings, even the ones that are, kind of grounded in realism, you might want to skip this one.
Okay, so not for the diehard romance fans or people who only want to read, contemporary stuff.
Exactly, but I think for everyone else, Bonded in Death is well worth the time.
Okay.
It's a great ride. It's got those emotional depths and some really thought-provoking themes woven into it.
Yeah, I'm excited to read it. I think you sold me on it. We've talked about the plot, the characters, the writing style, all those good things. What's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from this conversation about Bonded in Death?
I think the biggest takeaway is that even those characters that we think we know can still surprise us.
Okay.
I mean, we thought we knew Somerset, but
Right.
there's all these layers to him that we just never imagined. And I think it reminds us that everyone has a story. Everyone has a past that shapes who they are.
I like that. And it's like peeling back the layers of an onion. You never know what you're going to find.
Exactly. And sometimes those hidden depths are more exciting than we could have ever imagined.
Well, I think we've given everyone a pretty good overview of Bonded in Death.
I think so.
So now it's up to you guys to decide if you want to read it or not.
Yeah, just, trust your gut, explore what you're interested in, and most importantly, enjoy the journey.
And if you do end up reading it, let us know what you think.
Yes, we'd love to hear from you.
All right, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Bonded in Death.
Until next time, happy reading.